So what is problem solving? And so for the engineers in the crowd, who are already asking a million questions about, what's the root cause of the issue, and trying to really understand, what are all the different components of part of the problem so that you can start working on them. I want to apologize because we're going to talk about it, how this is going to align with your leadership journey. So from a leadership standpoint, how are you aligning things to be able to solve the problem through people? Right. So we're going to talk more about the mindset today around, the problem solving and the considerations as a consideration of others as part of the process. So very similar to what we talked about in the change management module. This will be a similar approach. We want to see this as a process and not an event. So before we dive into it, I want to just have sort of a checkpoint with everyone. I want to assess what your sort of your views and your emotions around problems and problem solving is currently, right? So how does it make you feel when you're presented with a problem? How do you view and how do you internalize it? Is it something that stresses you out? Is it something that annoys you because, great, one more thing to add to the plate? Does it make you angry because you have to deal with it? Or are you excited about it? So I'm really curious to just take a moment to think about that. And if there's a willingness to share a little bit, I'd love to hear kind of that foundation of where you currently sit with problems and problem solving. And do those feelings change depending on whether it's your own problem or it's somebody else's problem? So whether it's something that they've raised, you're in a team, somebody else has raised an issue, something that perhaps wasn't in your purview, or you're helping somebody with their problem. Does the way you view problems and problem solving change if that's a different scenario? So I'm curious. We'll go around the room. I can certainly share from my perspective that I've had to, I think, work hard at this. Problems in my view was very much, oh my gosh, one more thing to add to my pile of things to do. This is an annoyance. I think immediately feeling angry would come to mind because I'm already spread really thin. But I think if we can operate, or at least for me, if I can operate from more of a grounded state and take it in and kind of see where does this fit in with everything else that I'm doing, trying to see the opportunities, then I find for me, I'm able to see it as a little bit more exciting. It's like, okay, wait, this has the potential of X, Y, and Z. Let's see where I can fit that in. This might be a higher priority than the other things that I'm doing. And so that's been a bit of a transformation for me anyways. Because as we can think about, look, life is hard for everyone. I think if we think at any point that life should be easy, I think we're fooling ourselves. It's one big problem after another, and how we approach that really makes a difference in terms of our success, our mental health, all of those things. And so as a leader, the difficulty is multiplied, because while individuals can think of me, leaders must think of we. So Kirsten, I go back to kind of your reflection where it's like, whose problem is this? Is it yours? Is it mine? Or is it ours? And as a leader, it's going to be ours, because you're looking after your team, but also how does this fit into the big picture of your organization, right? Where does this all fit? So as leaders, you're thinking about that. Now, in larger organizations, most problems can be solved at the lower level in the organization. So the ones that rise up are generally the more difficult ones to solve. So this is the privilege as leaders, is you get a view on the toughest problems in the organization, right? So this is where having that skill set and that mindset becomes so important, right? And how you see problems shapes your attitude and shapes your leadership. How are you showing up to this? How are you going to tackle this? What are your behaviors in which you're empowering your people or discouraging them, right? So your mindset is everything. I love this. I love this quote by John Maxwell. Problems don't have to be problems if you don't want them to be. And that's the beauty of that mindset shift, is we are in control of the story we tell ourselves. So whether it's we're giving ourselves heck for having let this happen, and focusing on that, or seeing it as, okay, that happened. Okay, what are the teachings here? What are the opportunities that we can take from this? Right. This is where that pragmatism becomes a leading skill. Right. It allows a person to take things that others would consider problems or distractions and see them as opportunities. That's the advantage. Now, the quickest way to gain leadership is to lead through problem solving. So if we refer back to the 5 levels of leadership, I think we talked about, I'm not sure how many calls ago, but from John Maxwell's teachings, he talks about these 5 levels, where number 1 is position, number 2 is permission, number 3 is production, 4 is people management, and 5 is sort of that pinnacle. Right. So when you're solving tough problems the right way, with your people, through your people, empowering people, you can get up to level 4, I think, pretty quickly if you're taking the right approach. Right. And so even if you don't, say, have the position, right? So if you don't have level 1 and you're working within a team with colleagues, you may not have the authority that the position brings. However, you can still build the relationship, you can still build the results, and you can still build the people, the reproduction piece. So you can establish that sort of level of leadership the way people perceive you, even without the position. Right? But how you tackle the problem will determine where you can rise in these levels of leadership. And like with everything that's difficult, problems kind of offer an introduction, so to speak, in three different areas. So they introduce you to yourself. So we get to see, who are we when faced with adversity, is when we can really, usually it's who your friends are when you're going through a really tough time. The same happens with the relationship you have with yourself. Okay, so they introduce you to you. They also introduce you to others. Again, who are the ones that are adding to the solution? Who are the ones that are in there with you? Who are the ones that are adding to the problem? Right? Problems introduce us to others. They also introduce us to opportunities. We're going to talk about that a lot today, right? But for the purpose of today's call, we are going to focus on how problems introduce us to ourselves. Right? So this is that mindset piece. This is how are we showing up when we are faced with this.